The two most iconic things Nike ever made, their logo and their slogan, came from the last places you would ever expect. And the story of how they got here is way stranger than anything you would expect from a $50 billion company. Nike today is everywhere. The swoosh is on the jerseys of the greatest athletes alive. Just do it is one of the most recognizable slogans in history. But almost nobody knows where these two things actually came from, who made them, and what was really going on behind the scenes. The logo starts with a college student who got paid $35. And the slogan goes somewhere a lot darker than you would ever associate with a sportswear brand. This is the story of how Nike became Nike. Part 1. The $35 logo. In 1971, Carolyn Davidson was a graphic design student at Portland State University in Oregon. One day in the hallway, she mentioned to a friend she couldn't afford an oil painting class. A man in a suit overheard her. It was Phil Knight, an accounting professor who also ran a small shoe company called Blue Ribbon Sports on the side. He offered her $2 an hour to design the logo. His only instruction was that it should have something to do with movement. Davidson sketched out designs on tissue paper and held them up against drawings of shoes. What she came up with was a curved, wing-like shape, and the connection was not accidental. The company was about to be named Nike, after the Greek goddess of victory. In Greek mythology, Nike was often depicted with wings. She was the goddess who flew alongside warriors into battle and determined who would win. The swoosh is essentially a visual representation of that wing. Speed, motion, and victory, all in one simple curved line. The name swoosh itself is an onomatopoeia, a word that sounds like what it describes. The swoosh of an athlete sprinting off the starting block, the sound of movement. It was the perfect match for a brand built around athletic performance. Davidson sent her invoice for 17.5 hours of work at $2 an hour. Total, $35. Blue Ribbon Sports became Nike that same year, and the swoosh went on the first shoe. Years later, Davidson has said in interviews that the $35 was a fair rate for the time. She was a student, not a professional, and the company was still tiny. Nike did eventually thank her. Years later, they threw a surprise party in her honor and gave her a gold swoosh ring and a package of company stock. Part 2. Just do it. Now, here's where the story takes a turn. It is 1988. Nike is actually struggling. Nike brought in an advertising agency called Weeden and Kennedy to help. The founder, Dan Weeden, was working on a campaign, a series of TV commercials meant to position Nike not just for elite athletes, but for everyone. The night before the big presentation, Weeden needed one line to tie all the commercials together, something short that could speak to every single person watching. He thought of Gary Gilmore. Gilmore was a convicted murderer who had grown up in Portland, the same city as Nike and Weeden and Kennedy. In 1976, he killed 2 men in Utah and was sentenced to death. On January 17, 1977, just before he was executed by firing squad, he was asked if he had any final words. He said, "Let's do it." Weeden had read about this years earlier, and the phrase had never left him. Not because of what Gilmore had done, but because of something in those 3 words. A man facing the worst possible moment of his life and stepping into it anyway. How do you do that? Weeden said later in an interview. How do you, in the face of that much uncertainty, just push through it? He changed let's to just and wrote, "Just do it." He showed it to his team before the meeting. They said they didn't need it. He walked into the Nike meeting and showed it to Phil Knight. Knight said the same thing. Weeden said, "Just trust me on this one." And Nike did. The Just Do It campaign launched in 1988. That year, Nike had $877 million in worldwide sales and 80% of the US athletic shoe market. 10 years later, those numbers had grown to $9.2 billion in sales and 43% of market share, a 1,000% increase in revenue over a single decade. Today, Nike makes over $50 billion a year. Just Do It has an 82% recognition rate among Americans, higher than most political slogans, higher than almost anything. A college student charged $35 because that was the going rate. She had no idea the shape she drew would end up on billions of products worldwide. And Dan Whedon borrowed 3 words from a killer because they captured something he couldn't put in any other way. That is how Nike became Nike. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you liked this video and stay tuned for the next one.